Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller, and I'm joined today by Kimmy Powell. And Kimmy's got a couple of companies we're going to get into, but welcome, Kimmy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is exciting. So, Kimmy, like we always start with your background, your career journey. So, and you have multiple companies from a spa company to industrial floor. So, kind of give us the whole lead up.
Yes, I'll make it as brief as I possibly can. But I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. I was blessed to have a cheerleading advisor when I was 13 years old in seventh grade who was a computer science teacher as well. Back in, that was 1983, I guess. I graduated 87. And so I really, credit her because I don't know that I would have gotten into computer science at such a young age had I not been introduced to her. And so I began programming at 13 and became fascinated with technology and programming. So fast forward, got married when I was 20 years old in a double wedding. And my husband is the entrepreneur, truly. My father owned a construction company. My husband started a painting and pressure washing business. And I began to write programs way before, you had Excel spreadsheets and things, that I would keep track of the customer name, the paint number, things like that. And so when I worked at IBM and LexisNexis, and then quickly as we began to grow a family, I began to do more of the business and operational work of the business. And my husband would do the sales and estimating. And that sustained us really through most of our marriage and raising our children. When we moved to Charleston in 2014, I was a guest of Woodhouse Spa in Dayton, Ohio, and I became fascinated by their service and luxury and how much they sort of resembled a suburban version of like a Ritz-Carlton spa.
Wow.
Meaning a high-end luxury spa, but in your hometown, not like the membership model ones that are a little bit smaller and more transactional, but
Right.
more luxury. So we moved to Charleston in 2014, and I said to my husband, I think I'd like to open one of these. I really just wanted to find one in Charleston. There wasn't one. There was one in the state of South Carolina. So I began to open my first Woodhouse in 2015, and we opened a division of our construction company in Charleston as well. So I've been sort of moving between industrial flooring and spa hospitality life ever since. Mostly I'm passionate about entrepreneurialism, business strategy, and technology.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so your first one in 2015, what else?
Yes.
And tell her, how many did you wind up with?
I wound up with 4. So I bought my first building and opened my first one. It's just under 10,000 square feet in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, outside of Charleston. And then 5 years later, opened downtown. And in the last 2 years, I've opened Franklin, Tennessee. Actually, it'll be almost 3 years, and Savannah, Georgia. And, there's a quote that somebody gave me once, and it says, overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10. And that always stuck with me, because if you would have told me when I opened the first one that I was ever going to open a second, let alone 3 more in 3 states, I would have said, never, there's no way. And here I sit 10 years later.
Fantastic. I love it. Love it. And so tell us about your thought process for both, right? Because again, you have different growth strategies for both of these companies, and they're very different. And so the juggling is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. Our oldest son, we have 3 boys. Our oldest son bought half the company last year. And it's been super exciting because he's a numbers guy like I am. And so now we get to really talk strategy. And when you really get down to, your productivity per man hour, it's not really that different when you're talking about someone grinding a floor and someone giving a facial. You're still trying to turn a profit per man hour, and you have to know obviously your overhead, but you need to know your supplies, your material, and your labor, right? Those are the 2 big ones, on time and on budget. So both really are strategically similar in the way that we look at them and try to control our material, labor, and then our overhead burden. So they're not actually that dissimilar. One's, one customer's come to us.
When you boil down to the basics, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we love to do. And that's what I love to do, is really just look at the data and try to understand the ways we can grow the company strategically and profitably and see if we can expand and scale.
So is that the goal for both companies, expand and scale?
Yeah, I mean, my son will ultimately have to decide. I mean, he will probably buy us out in the next 5 years. He has to
Yeah.
wait 5 years. Mom made him wait 5 years before he.
I
I
love
said,
it.
Listen, I'm 55. You got to let me get to 60 at least.
Right.
But part of it is too selfish, right? I want to have some fun with him and spend some time with
Yeah.
him scaling. So I think for now it is built to scale, but we believe that when I buy a house, I want to remodel it to sell. When I buy a business or I build a business, I want to build it to be sold. I want to know who I might sell it to, and is it a profitable business? So, in some regards, they're always built to everything's for sale, but I don't know that the immediate goal would be to sell. I think it would be to hold, and
Right.
maybe scale through multiple acquisitions through different, channels.
I love it. I love it. Tell me about the industries in general, both, and how you see, the shifts that have happened, especially, one of the things we always get on the podcast is everything changed during COVID, right?
Right.
And so kind of go, post COVID and kind of what you see down the road for both of them.
Right. So I'm bullish on both these industries. Construction is just always going to be there. You see more and more private equity firms, buying what they call boring businesses, right? Because we need these businesses in order to,
Absolutely.
maintain infrastructure and the supply chain and just for growth. So the industrial flooring market is incredibly big and continues to grow for many reasons. Some for environmental reasons, because concrete polishing, there are some green aspects to that. And of course, you have safety with light reflectivity and
Right.
anti-slip and things like that. In the wellness industry, it is exploding as well. As you know, we go from,
Yes.
getting a massage and a facial now to going into a med bed or a hyperbaric chamber or infrared
Right.
saunas. So technology plays a huge part in not only the sales cycle, the customer experience cycle, but also in the equipment that we use and buy and where the trends are going and how we can best meet our customers' needs and use technology to our advantage.
Yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree more. Like we see it, on application, and we also see it on innovation of equipment across all industries.
Right.
So tell me some of the things that you see, and if you kind of want to go and hit, either or both companies, is emerging tech influencing these outside of kind of what you already said, and what when you look down the next 1 to 2 years, what are the big things that you can see happen?
Yeah, so I can speak to that for really both of them because both of them have different, the same problem, different ways of executing it. So we look at the spa industry as, okay, how can we scale? How can we make sure all those rooms are being used every day and every hour for as many of the capacity that we have? So in the spa industry, it's a little bit harder on, like, let's say a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday than it is on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as you could imagine,
Makes
right?
sense.
So one of the things we're excited about, there's a company called Reach AI we're beginning to work with. And this is something that will go out and reach out for clients use AI to find the customers that are trying to get in on maybe a quieter day. Maybe they're my age, maybe they're empty nesters, whatever the situation is. Right now, you have to spend a ton of money boosting and SEO and really trying to get out there and put those two things together. This will take availability in our system and go out and try to reach the right customer to fill that. I am personally very excited about that because it's one of
That's
the
really
things that
cool.
makes me crazy is like, I know there are customers out there that want to come in during these times, but it's reaching them and then trying to sell. In the industrial flooring industry, it's similar in that, we have all of these guys and all this equipment, and we want to make sure that equipment is deployed. It'd be very cool if we could deploy it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
Means, when you see these auto lawnmowers and things like that, we want a vacuum, the Roombas and all the things. If we could get those to sweep the floor or to polish the floor or even just prep the floor, shot blast, things like that, that could become so valuable to us because it saves on safety, man hours, overtime. So there's lots of reasons. And then we can also take our best teams and deploy them and use the machines to run when they can. So it's exciting time, I think, to be a part of business when you think about all these applications.
Oh yeah. And we talked about a little bit earlier, talked about, because I've heard this in a couple different industries in home services, whether it's commercial or residential, but talk about the impact of AI with estimations.
Yes, so this is critical, and luckily, my oldest son, got his MBA and had a career before he came into the construction company. He's very technically savvy in marketing and all this, very easy to apply things. So he just will whip up an AI, and he'll say, "Oh, I just programmed AI to write a program to do this and talk to this person," and then he also is reaching out to, like, if he's using Salesforce.com, for example, he's
Right.
bridging that with some AI that'll talk to our CRM, but he's also utilizing remote people in other countries to help code that with AI. So it's fascinating how quickly things are changing. But in estimating in particular, one of the early conversations we had when he bought half the company last year, I'm like, if we do not become pioneers of AI estimation, our customers, I mean, our competitors will, and
Yes.
they will be able to put out so many more estimates than we will, and therefore, just by the percentage alone, they'll be able to garner more of the market. So we really want to adopt those types of technologies as quickly as we can.
And that is, to me, I'm hoping everybody that's watching this podcast understands what Kimmy just said, because when competitors are cracking the code of leveraging AI, it means that they can operate 3 to 5 times faster, right? So if they get yes, it's a huge leap, right? Because AI doesn't sleep. And so if you can start to figure out your workflows in your processes, you can start to figure out, what can I have some of this automation do, whether it's off hours or whether it's like you were talking about, can some of this equipment be running in a more automated fashion? There's so many different ways in which you can use AI and automations to further your services, help your increase, increase, or just like you were talking about, just some of it's just decreasing the wasted time. So there's just lots of it there.
I recently have been demoing a robotic massage machine. It's called Escape. Great company, super innovative, and I love the product. But one of the things that, this is a good example of how the technology is there, but I don't know that I'm there yet. And you
Right.
have to put on like a full bodysuit in order to get the massage. And then I wonder, okay, well, is that what's that made of, right?
Right.
Is that material? Do people want to get into that? And then
Right.
you have the massage, and it's great because some people don't want to interact with a human being. They like the
Right.
idea of not doing it. On the other hand, you look at the cost, and to lease the machine costs X, Y, and Z versus will enough customers book that? On the other
Right.
hand,
Because you got to justify that cost, right?
and it
Yeah.
won't call in sick, which is great. But so there's all these things that are happening. And I think the important thing is to get out there and just educate yourself. I just, I'm having the conversation, and then we're just going to continue the conversation because I'm not quite there yet myself, but these are just examples of how robotics and actual AI is just, going there. There's no stopping it. So you've got
Yeah.
to really try to learn as much as you can.
You know what, Kimmy, you bring up an interesting point, because I always tell people that and again, I'm not always right. It's not that. It's just, I always think, where do you put it to where, one, you trust it, two, it makes a big enough impact, but you don't lose the human touch, right? So the fact that you're balancing that decision making right now, we might get there, but we might not get there for a few years or 6 months as the technology continues to advance, right? Because there's some people that would rather have a human, for sure, masseuse, right? Versus some people that would rather, they might be more comfortable, right?
Or a country club might like it because they don't have a spa. Whereas maybe it's
Exactly.
not a best fit for me because I don't know the answer to it. I love the company. I love the technology. Again, we're just watching these things now sort of, emerge. And I think you do have to press pause a little bit because there's so much. Like I could buy a new machine, and I've made mistakes, by the way. I could buy a new
We
machine
all
for
have.
both industries. Oh, that looks, one was one was virtual reality, and it just did not work in our setting. Beautiful product. I couldn't get it to convert. So I think you have to really weigh all these things, but it's exciting times, and I love learning and meeting new companies that are doing this because things are
Yeah, me
changing.
too. Me too. And yeah, so I'll bring up one example, right? Kind of what you're talking about. So I had somebody on the podcast a couple weeks ago. His name's Marco, and he does neuroscience marketing, right? And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. And when he first started doing it, he would have to send people into the stores, right? And it was just really how did they react with the brand and the product packaging, right? And so they put, a whole bunch of competitor products and their product on the shelf, not telling the customer, but they had to dress up in a bunch of stuff with sensors, right?
Yes.
And that's a prohibitive experience, what he was saying. He goes, but now the technology hasn't advanced enough to where they can use facial rec to get 80% of that feedback. And now they know they can go really fast with a smaller sample size of people without having to, to have that dressing up and putting the hat on with the sensors and looking crazy. And he said, now we can not only tell you what brand colors resonate, what brand logos, what packaging, and it allows them to repackage and reimagine their brand to make it more impactful. And I go, if we can extrapolate that kind of stuff into what you're talking about, and make things, simpler, and sometimes we just have to let the technology just kind of burn in a little bit. But on the flip side, right, and for all the people watching the podcast, I just want to make sure everybody understands that that's not to deter you from making inroads with AI, like Kimmy already has, right? And both of your businesses, right? With the estimation, there's places you have to, or you're going to get left in the dust. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I think you cannot fear change. I'm a big fan of saying change is good, change is necessary. I believe we're always meant to be changing and evolving, and my dad was sort of old school, and, it was hard for him to change a logo, and so I can understand being afraid to adopt new technology, but I would just encourage anybody listening to go higher than a young person that is very comfortable with it, to bring them into your organization to help make those changes. Because even I'm very technically savvy, but yet my son can do it so much faster, and it's just, more intuitive, and he just really loves it. And I'm busy working on a couple other things. So it's great to have someone a little younger or a little more, just that it's just so natural to them, and they just love to do it.
Well, and what's a really good example of that, right? Pre-AI is, most of the kids growing up now, and I say kid, but even the post-college, and that young generation, they grew up with a phone in their hand.
That's right.
Right? Social media is second nature. They don't even think about it. Why wouldn't you hire someone like that to help run and post on your social media stuff?
Exactly.
What you're talking about with AI is exactly the same things. How do you move fast?
Yeah, how do you move faster? And if you're uncomfortable with it, that's okay. Recognizing that that's not your thing is totally fine. But then just burying your head in the sand would not be advised.
Yes, because there's just too many benefits to it, right? So tell me, as you kind of think about it, and again, you're in construction, you're in real estate, you're in hospitality, right? You're an investor, right? So do you see things on the horizon that this is like? Do you see disruptors coming? What do you see? Because again, you have a really unique perspective being in all those industries.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think the biggest disruptor will be a supercomputer, Web3, with the supercomputer, quantum computing and Web3. So not to get too deep into that, and I know it scares some people, but the amount, it's like having an unlimited number of geniuses, all their information pulled together and operating 24/7. Like it's unbelievable. The medical breakthroughs we're about to learn, and probably information about our universe, all sorts of things. But what I think will end up happening more is probably these personal assistant type things where it's like, schedule this, book my flight, I want a massage, I want a female therapist, I want to, I think things will become so automated that you will just speak as you're, walking through your house, and it'll just get done for you. Things will happen. I do envision this where you got your glasses and you're doing this sort of thing. Like you're
right. You don't need 3 monitors because you have a big screen TV right in front of your glasses, right?
Right. And you're really kind of moving. Yes, I'll do that. You're, so I do imagine things like that. But, from a standpoint of being a busy executive, I look forward to, I would love someone to read my emails more efficiently.
Yes.
And I know that exists. But, to get to those things to get a little bit more fine tuned so that it frees up my ability to have more frequency.
We just for everybody listening, what Kimmy just said, we have a cool little automation coming out that we're going to send out to everybody. in the next few weeks for the email because it drives me crazy. I know it drives all of you crazy.
Yeah, and I've got like 3 different emails. And why do I have 3 different emails? And I know I can put them all in one, and they're all in one thing, but they're not all in one in another. And
But you want to respond with the brand, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I want to respond with the brand. I want to sort it out, filter it. I
Yes.
mean, I want a personal assistant, but then on the other hand, I don't want to have to manage a personal assistant and try to
Yeah.
feed it, because then I think I'll just have to explain things twice. So there's. But I do think that's where it's going, where it's, I mean, it already knows what clothes I want. I mean, things pop up and they know exactly what I'm buying and what I do. So I think it'll just continue to just get so much smarter with quantum computing and AI that, the computer will know us better than we know us.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy, but again, it's exciting too if you take advantage of it. I see a lot of disruption coming, in multiple markets, and like you said, private equity is understanding that what we call the boring businesses, they're sucking them up left, right, and center.
I think we'll need more wellness time too. Like, I think, it's one thing to have all this efficiency, but then sometimes you become so efficient that you can do so many things that you don't really take time to decompress and think about wellness and nature and grounding yourself and things like that. So I do think there will be more and more, you come into a spa or at your house with a sauna, you see more and more people putting saunas in their house, like just building in that nature. And, one of the things I worry about a little is like these wearables and things like that. Like, what are they made of? What's going into our skin? And that is something.
Another great point.
The wellness industry has really made me, even your little AirPods, do we know?
I know. I've been warned about these, right? Yeah.
I just went back to the wired ones. I know but it's that kind of thing you have to keep thinking about too, as we see cancer, on the rise, and we see more and more strange things happening with what we're eating, our environment, things like that. Not to get on a tangent, but I do think
you're right. Wellness.
Yeah,
it all factors in.
AI with wellness, because you'll become so cerebral and so digital that nature will not, you got to keep nature into your life, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's why I love the comeback of organic and all that kind of stuff for that same reason, right? We're realizing that we probably went a little too far with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So before I ask you my final ending question, I got to ask you a little bit about the book. Tell everybody about the book, and again, we'll have links to it below.
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about it. So when I did move here, shortly after, a couple years after living here, I was asked to be on the board of governors at the business school here, the College of Charleston School of Business. I do a lot of mentoring. Yeah, I love students. I love living in a town where there's a college. And I did a lot of mentoring. And the questions that I would get tended to be very similar questions. And so I wrote the book. It's called The Passion and Purpose Project, because what I like to speak about or talk to young people about is, making sure that their goals are in alignment with their passion and purpose. Because ultimately you can say, I want to be my number's 100 million, or you can say I need, 50 million followers, or whatever it is that you need. But that isn't really going to move the needle if you look back on your life as you get older and you want to look back and how do you want to leave the world? You need to do estate planning. What are the gifts you're leaving your children, family, or community? So the book is really about looking at your life sort of from when you're gone back to present day, to just say, like, are you on the right path right now? So I listened to a podcast the other day, and people say, you got to do what you love. And he's like, no, you got to love what you do. Because I think that's a really important distinction. We're all told you got to do what you love. But at the end of the day, if we all did that, we might, not be able to make a living. So, but the idea is to love what you do and to have some purpose to it. So that's what the book's about. And I'm working on another book, which is about making your work week work for you and adding strategy to your work week. And, that'll be coming out later.
I love it. I can't wait. You know what the great part about the first book, the Passion book, is that it mimics what we always tell anybody doing a strategy to do, is work backwards.
That's right.
Right? But no one looks at their life and says work backwards. And it's really a smart thing to do.
Well, thank you. There's a proprietary, it's called Your Future Funnel. So you go through the funnel and, you start out with things you absolutely hate to do. Then you start out with things you really love to do.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask yourself what lifestyle you want, meaning it's your life. What style do you want? Like, how do you want to live? Do you want to live near the water? Do you want to bike ride? Do you want to walk? Do you want to commute? Do you want a city? So we just noticed after living in Ohio and being third generation that, like, I never thought I could live anywhere else. It sounds so naive now, but I just thought I'd live there forever.
Yeah. And you know what? You're not alone, Kimmy, because like we moved 17 years ago from the Philadelphia area, but most of my wife and my family all still live up there and they can't imagine moving. But after we moved and my brother moved down to Florida, it was very similar thing. It's like it kind of opened up. People started going, well, maybe I could live somewhere else,
Yeah,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Right. And so we don't really take a lot of time to design the life that is for us. We just sort of get on that treadmill and go. And so anyway, that's what the book's about. It's just really being intentional about what you want out of your life, how you want it to end, and being planning for the different phases. Now we're empty nesters. Now we have a grandchild, so our lives keep changing. And, instead of feeling like scared or stuck, just being comfortable pivoting to this next new opportunity.
I love that. And you know what else? And this is why everyone should read this book, because what it does is it also level sets you on, because if you don't, you wind up with regret. And that's the worst thing you ever want to do. But if you start to analyze it now, you give yourself a lot of runway to be able to make those changes.
Yeah, somebody said to you, okay, every 20 years you change. You would be like, oh gosh, I'm on year 19. I should probably get ready. But, we don't think that way, right?
No.
But our bodies need that. Like, we're different people. We're all different every 10 years. We're different stages of our lives. And I think sometimes as you get older, you get a little fearful of that or sad that now the kids don't want to hang out as much. Well, that's because they've got their own lives now, right? So,
right.
But now it's a time for me to go make some new friends and do something new too. So I think if you look at it as these things as opportunities, it just makes life to me more exciting and interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. All right, so I told you I was going to ask you a couple of closing questions on what's something that Kimmy Powell has done with AI or uses AI as a founder to make your life more productive.
Well, one of the things, I used to be a contributing writer in a wellness space, and this is when ChatGPT first came out, and I would have my topic, but I really didn't want to list the benefits of grounding, but I know the benefits, but I didn't want to write them all down. So I used ChatGPT to help the framework. And then I'd tell ChatGPT to rewrite it 3 different times in 3 different voices. And then I'd go in and edit it. So I didn't want to be traceable, right?
Yes.
I wanted to be authentic, but I just needed a little assistance with some of the
starting point though, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. Just to do things like that, in as far as my career, I think some of it, most of the time when I'm use AI. I use Grok 3, by the way. I'm a big X person, so I love Grok. I really use it a lot personally to help me with either businesses or travel or just being more efficient about my time or trends. I'll ask for trends, or the other day I had a marketing question. And I spoke to this a little bit earlier about trying to get people in on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to the spa, how do I reach that customer? And it was fascinating. I asked Grok to do it for me and it came up with some really interesting answers. And so in my marketing call with my marketing director, I was like, okay, here are some things we kind of do, but it was taking it to a next level. Like if you have a gift card, maybe on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, that gift card has more value. Or there's and I was like, oh, that's really cool, Grok. Yeah. Thank you.
And I was going to ask you about that. And you know what, before I forget, because we've heard this, and actually we've been to a number of Friday, Sunday weddings for the same reason. They're like, hey, we have this venue. Everybody wants Saturday, and that's going to be the most expensive, but that they don't. But now they're starting to have Thursday weddings and Monday weddings, right? And for the same reason, right? And they get better deals, and that's how they can fill those spaces. So what you're talking about makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and obviously we knew okay, having a special on Monday, the simple, but the AI made me think about, yeah, you know what? Maybe that gift card has more value on those days, right? So we have a lot of gift card holders. So if I can add value to their Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they already have a gift card, then maybe they'd like to come in.
Yeah. Which, that's incentives, right? It's fantastic.
Yes. And I like how Grok, you can get it in unhinged mode or sassy mode. It gets pretty funny. And sometimes it's very, I said, oh, you talk so much. Give me bullet points. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I was being sorry. I like I kind of interact with it almost like a person. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, they become your assistant, right? Yeah. And I've created 3 different ones. One is for my marketing only, right? I just do all marketing stuff there. And then one is what I was telling you earlier about the AI mentor, which I stole from Kim Mahan, which is, as she called it, the prompt that changed her life. I'm going to send it to everybody.
I want that prompt.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're going to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one is more of an operational one, just so they're completely different things, and I have different conversations with them, but that's what I mean. Everybody uses it differently. And that's why I'm trying to get everyone to share the way they do it so we can, we can unlock more. I love that you use Grok that way.
Yeah, a fun fact, my husband and I just bought a boat and we're going to travel on it. And, and so we're going down and I'm trying to figure out how we get from St. Petersburg, Florida, back up to Charleston going, 10 knots. And, this is the speed, this is where we're going. And I'm like, okay, we're going to take 7 days. I don't want to be gone more than, I don't want to be underway more than 3 hours a day. Tell me where to stop.
Can you cut through, or do you have to go all the way down to Key West?
We're going to go around. You can cut through. We found out the state of Florida, I think it's called I'm going to say the wrong name, but there's a cut through.
Wow.
That you can go through. It's like 7 locks and you have to go through. But we're going to actually go down and around. But it was fascinating when I asked Grok to plan the trip for me. It nailed it. Like, wow. I was like, wow. I gave it all the parameters, told it where I wanted to stay. I needed mooring balls. I needed to be on this app. This is where I want to be. Do it in 6 days. It was great. But I was fascinated how great it was. It was like 2 minutes.
Now you just got to get a Starlink or something on the boat so you can make sure that. Yeah, there you go. I had a friend of mine that's what he did, and he told me how Starlink was his savior because he did some remote work all during the trip too. So.
Yeah, I work remotely too, so it's important to me to be able to have it. But yeah, we just got it installed, and I told you I'm a Starlink fan. I'm an early investor in Starlink as well.
I love it. All right, last question.
Yeah.
So magic wand time. You can pick either company or both, whatever. If I give you a magic wand, what would you use it to meet or exceed your next 12-month growth?
I would use it to maximize capacity and reduce friction.
100%. I totally get that. And you've already touched on how, right, during the podcast. Yes, that's fantastic.
Yes, I would wave that magic wand and make us full on our slower days and more profitable on our busy days.
Yes. Yep. I totally get it. That's fantastic. Thank you. Kimmy, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for spending time with us, and we really appreciate your insights.
I've enjoyed it. I really have. Thank you.
Yeah. And just for anybody that wants to get your book or get in touch with you, again, we'll put all the links below when we go live, but tell them.
Yes, I'm very easy. I'm KimmyKPowell.com, and I'm Kimmy K. Powell on every social media, so I'm pretty easy to find.
Love it. Thank you so much. And that wraps up this episode of the Future Proof Podcast with Kimmy Powell. I'm your host, Brett Muller. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.